Because of this bizarre phenomenon, two Civil War veterans who had once been mortal enemies finally lived out their last days the dearest of friends. In 1862, Willis V. Meadows was 19 when he joined his brothers and cousins in Company G of the 37th Alabama Volunteer Infantry. They were assigned to the Western Front in the American Civil War along the Mississippi, where their company suffered heavy casualties in one battle after another. Months later, they were guarding the city of Vicksburg, which was under attack by the Union Army. By July 1, 1863, sharpshooter Willis Meadows was targeting the enemy through a peephole in an iron boiler plate. 3 Union soldiers from Company H of the 5th Iowa Volunteer Infantry were advancing from the east with orders to pick off Confederate snipers. They included Peter Knapp, aged 21 years, who caught sight of Meadows firing from his shelter, aimed at the boilerplate peephole and fired. Meadows fell, severely injured in his right eye, and a presumed fatality as the men moved on. The bullet had entered through his eye and come to rest near his brain. Meadows was later discovered still breathing by Federal troops picking up the bodies of the dead. He was treated by Union surgeons who tried to find the embedded bullet without success and, as no shell fragments were located, deemed it unsafe to perform an operation. Meadows had lost his right eye with the impact of the injury. Then boarded onto a prisoner of war ship, he was transported to a Union hospital, then later released and paroled to a Confederate facility. There he lingered as a patient for the remainder of the war, later working as a nurse's aide. Knapp was captured a few months after the fall of Vicksburg and held in a number of Confederate POW camps, including the overcrowded and inhumane Andersonville prison. He was subsequently transferred to several other prisons before finally escaping from one of them. Both men returned to their farms after the war. Meadows went back to working his land in Lanett, Alabama, just over the Georgia state line, while Knapp farmed for some time in Michigan. Both later married, Knapp in 1887 before moving west to Kelso, Washington, and both marriages were childless. The decades passed by, ushering in the economic panic of 1893, followed by a depression, then the First World War. Willis Meadows was 78 on a particular day in 1921 when he began to choke. He clutched at his throat with both hands as violent spasms shook his whole body. The fear that this was the end for him took hold as the lights began to dim, and just when he thought he was about to take his last breath, an object flew from his mouth, bounced on the wooden kitchen table, and clattered across the floor. It was that elusive 1-ounce Civil War bullet, the slug that had taken out his right eye and then become embedded near his brain for nearly 60 years. Meadows' coughs-up bullet story became national news in 1921. Various papers continued to keep it alive, revisiting the astonishing event periodically. 11 years later, the Ripley's Believe It or Not cartoon of the phenomenon was published in 42 countries and 17 languages. However, Ripley missed the most surprising aspect of the saga. In 1950, a Central Point, Oregon man named Henry Kilburn brought a handwritten diary to the attention of a local newspaper editor. He also had in his possession photographs of Meadows and Knapp and another of the bullet Meadows had expelled. Historically, Kilburn's family had fallen on hard times, and the childless Knapp family had adopted Kilburn's sister, Minnie May. It was May Knapp who had given the diary, photographs, and explanation of the story to her brother. The diary and photographs had belonged to her adoptive father, Peter Knapp. Knapp had seen the story of the coughed-up bullet back in 1921 and realised that he had to have been the soldier who fired that bullet. He reached out to Meadows, and months later the pair met up and compared stories, finding out that it was indeed true. As young men, these two had been mortal enemies, each with orders on eliminating the other. Now, as older veterans, the pair spent their later years as close friends, exchanging letters and family photographs and wishing each other continued good health. Their story was also uncovered by Alice Knapp of Nehalem, Oregon, who had been studying her family's genealogy. Alice was researching her husband's ancestors in 2009 when she came upon his great-great-great-granduncle Peter's story, now gone some 85 years. Inquiring as to where Peter Knapp had been buried, Alice was stunned to learn that the cremated ashes of both him and his wife Georgiana were sitting in a storage shelf in a Portland crematorium. They were still unclaimed and forgotten from all those years ago. Working with veterans advocate Debbie Peavyhouse, Alice was able to arrange for Knapp and his wife to be buried with full military honours in a huge ceremony that included Civil War reenactors, historians, press, civilian and military brass, and 300 relatives and friends he had never met. So what of Willis V. Meadows, the stoic veteran who had carried the bullet around inside his head for 58 years, probably suffering chronic headaches as a result? He passed at age 84 at home of what was described as a lingering illness. His obituary in the Lafayette Sun stated that he had achieved financial success and left his wife well provided for. Also, that the wound in Meadows' throat caused by the lodged bullet had become malignant several years previously, leading to his decline. Despite the courageous soldier finding fame and friendship through that ultimately fatal bullet, his journey is remarkable for his forgiving and getting on with life.